serves on the boards of Upwardly Global and Community Technology Alliance, and he's the co-owner of The Well, the groundbreaking online community, which is now at around and active for a while. So I'm pleased to introduce Mauvais, and he'll take us through the articles of Keynote.
Out for the end of the day. When they first sort of asked me to go do this, I looked through the program. It was great. I said, oh, it's a wonderful content. It's a great conference. Oh man, at the end of the day, gee, after 2 days, they're going to be worn out. But I realized a good part of that was I got to sit through everyone else's presentation so I could respond to that, and no one could respond back to me. So that's really quite good. There's a lot of interesting stuff that came up that I started talking about making a smartphone or making healthcare as easy to use with a smartphone without a manual. I thought was pretty interesting. I'll talk a little bit. We talked about the quantitative self and the 6-month drop-off. We had some conversations around how we collect that data passively, so I'll talk a little bit about that. Data ecosystems and EMRs, that was something else that's going to hit in there. So, to structure my talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about what my team does. I'm a technologist, I'm a software guy. I work a little bit on the fringes of healthcare, so I'll bring in sort of the outsider's angle on that, so I'll sort of talk through some of that. I'll talk about what Microsoft's role in the healthcare space is at a really high level. I'll spend the bulk of my time, however, talking about some tech trends, things that are influencing the overall economy, healthcare in particular, and then I'm going to bang through a bunch of interesting examples, at least they're interesting to me, around what Microsoft and other people are doing around innovation in the healthcare sector. Primarily it's things of taking not too exciting, maybe too groundbreaking technologies, but applying them in a novel way in technology. And I'm going to do that until I run out of time, and then I'm going to talk 4 or 5 things that I think are risks to innovation in healthcare from a technology standpoint. And I'll be around for 15, half an hour after the session, so if there's any people want to confront me on, ask questions, I'm happy to do that. So Microsoft, so my role at Microsoft. So I run Civic Innovation. We focus on 5 cities in the US, Chicago, New York, Boston, San Francisco, and San Jose. We're spinning up a team in Seattle. And what we're really trying to do is work hand in hand with city leaders to envision how technology can really improve the quality of life of residents. So that is city leaders, obviously, electeds and non-electeds. It's the entrepreneurial community, it's nonprofit organizations, it's institutions like libraries and museums. It is everyone that is thinking about how technology can help. And we bring a technology standpoint. I partner a lot with people that work with energy, architects. They bring their own view. They bring a view of city planning or how better energy efficiency. Those are all great things we need to do in cities. Microsoft, we're good at technology, so that's the angle I bring. Things that we see is open data. We talked about EMR records and how that's driving. We really see open data driving a lot around transparency, better efficiency in government. And I think the thing that's often overlooked that people don't see is the new business opportunities. New business is being grown by taking a look at this data. McKinsey Global Institute did a study, it's probably a year and a half old now, talking that there's $3 trillion of economic activity that open data, and they have a very broad view of open data, will drive in the economy. There's a new level of expectation of residents around how they want to interact with government services. So we're used to Google, we're used to Bing, we're used to Uber and Facebook and Amazon. We have a level of expectation of how we interact with government. And a lot of those services aren't there yet. So how do we get them so that government can be consumed the same way? Libby Schaaf describes it really well, the mayor of Oakland. And she says, I want to interact with city government at home, on my couch, at night, in my pajamas. And that's a great vision for how we want cities to provide their services the same way that other enterprises do. Other things too, there's $6.4 billion of what IBC says is going to be the civic tech, gov tech spend. So that's one of the angles that Microsoft is. We want to be part of this conversation because down the road, we want to monetize some of that. Anything else on here I haven't hit? I know the last thing I want to talk about is I'm about a year in this job now. I was running an innovation lab. I'm now over on the city side of the house. And I really see this as a new face of activism. You used to see a lot of activists, they come and they push government to make changes. And now we see these civic hackers, they show up and they say, hey, I'm going to work with you hand in hand, and I'm going to help you make that change. I'm going to redesign this form. I'm going to capture some data. I'm going to put together a map that shows where I get my flu shots or the EBT example. There's a lot of hands-on things that people are doing. I think that's really quite exciting. So Microsoft and healthcare. So we have products that we sell in the space. We talked a little bit earlier about the personal health record. I'll get into that. But we have products. I'm not going to talk about those too much. I'm really going to talk more about the innovation and what we're doing on a research side. So Microsoft, if you go to research.microsoft.com, we have a bunch of practice areas. One is health and well-being. A couple things I'll highlight there. I'll come back to more later. But interestingly, the seminal work around algorithms for detecting HIV comes out of Microsoft research. You never thought of that. I didn't know it. And what it is, it's spam detection algorithms. Looking at how spam mutates, how threat changes, and how we can trap that at the edge at the time that I pocket all our product and capture that. And interestingly enough, that is a very similar process to how HIV mutates. So this has spawned 40-odd papers in Science and Nature, $110 million later on with research has come out of that work we've done. There's a bunch of other things up there that you can go look at. One fairly new one is, I can't remember what hospital it is. It's Seattle, yes. We took 80, I think 100 patients that had developed pneumonia, looked at the EMR, back to that freeing up the EMR and what use that has. We looked at that, ran our machine learning algorithms against that, learned what some precursors were, what the indicators were, and then we ran that against the rest of the population and looked to see what happened. And we got an 87% success rate, not only detecting patients that would later develop pneumonia, but actually getting the proper time of onset. So not only does this let us intervene sooner and help give patients treatment sooner before it becomes more serious, but it also frees up clinicians to do other work as opposed to monitoring patients for pneumonia, because we can now throw machine learning at it. So that's sort of the academic end of Microsoft research. And so I want to put a personal face on it. You might have seen this. It's a Super Bowl ad, year before last or so, but I think it does a good job of talking about the personal side.
I have ALS. With ALS, a person loses the ability to move and breathe on their own. I communicate verbally with the eye tracking technology. Communication is a key element to our quality of life. The eye tracking technology runs on Windows, and Surface was the latest product we have discovered where it was enabled.
All day he's on his computer, whether he's tweeting or he's speaking. It's powerful enough for him, which is huge. Steve is able to get some physical time with Rivers because he'll climb up on his lap. When they're watching movies together, can talk back and forth to Rivers about what's going on. And the time that he has with Rivers on his lap, I think it's safe to say, are his favorite times.
Although I am hopeful for a medical cure for ALS, I have always said, until there is one, technology is my cure.
So a lot of that research came out of Microsoft. We do a lot of work tracking people, vision, I'll have a little more on a Connect product. But this is also outside of what we're doing on sort of an individual level. We're also productizing this in our Halo lens. It's the sort of augmented reality device that we announced, probably a couple months ago. And part of the selection process is tracking people's glance with their eyes. So let me talk a little bit just about technology trends, and you probably recognize all this, so I'm not going to get into explain what they are. What I want to do is just give a couple, pick out a couple of these and talk about, I think, some new angles to them. So one is we talk about the expanding ecosystem of computing devices, Internet of Things. Everybody knows about the Internet of Things. But I think the thing that we need to think about is the turning of computers into sensing devices that no longer take our input and spew output, but they are seeing the world for us. They're seeing what we're doing, they're tracking the environment, they're being able to identify surfaces around them, and they're just spewing all sorts of data. And as we get that data, we're going to be able to apply great machine learning algorithms on top of them and see how, and learn a lot more about human intention. Big data is really, and machine learning are moving out of sort of prediction level. We're gotten pretty good at that, but they're really looking and trying to understand what people's intent are. When you go to that store, what are you doing? Well, depending on what time of day it is, where you're coming from, who all is around you, these are all things we can know from the phones. And we can apply interesting machine learning algorithms to them to help drive intent. Now, there's lots of privacy issues around that, which we can talk offline about. It's just a longer conversation. But assuming that we as a technology industry, we as a society, can figure out that privacy angle, the ability to augment our lives, both in the consumer side and in the healthcare side, we have an opportunity for great progress in that space. Cloud computing, we all know that the economics of cloud computing. But I think the thing that's often lost is the fact that it is elastic. There is more computing power storage than any of us as application developers could use. We've always lived in this world of constraints around technology. And now we are constraint-free. What type of algorithms will we build? But the data sets are massive in healthcare. The computational requirements around genomic research are huge. And we're able to throw cloud computing at them. Personal computing. Really, the first personal computer is your phone. The previous personal computer you had at home, called a personal computer, was shared amongst the family, in most cases. The work computer was owned by work. The phone is really the first computer that we have, that we carry with us everywhere, that knows everything about us, that we don't share with other folks. So it's really the first personal computer, and that allows us to do a lot more interesting things around it. And finally, user interfaces. The only point I'll make there is it's not just about touch or voice or ink. It's about being adaptable and changing to be appropriate to the environment. One of our executives was talking about when Connect first came out, how it was gestures and how it was a great natural interface. Well, gesturing at your computer is not so natural when you're in seat 29B. You need a different interface there. And so I think we need to think about natural interfaces about how that changes. So, when we talk about advances in healthcare, and you talk to sort of lay folks, there's two things that always come up. When are we going to get good telemedicine, and when do we get that Star Trek tricorder thing? And so this is the cover of Science and Invention, I think, from 1925. So about 30 years after the commercialization of radio. And they're already thinking about it. We're still waiting. The good news is they even had a architecture slide then. So they had, God knows how that thing works. So they had a vision around it. So what we have today, we had a great, it came up on a panel earlier about how we're able, different approaches there. For the most part, it seems a lot of it is still used in hospital settings, which is great. It drives costs out, it gets an ability to additional external resources, but it's still on us largely. And that means it's expensive. And that means there's accessibility issues. And when you're in a hospital, it's too late in a lot of ways. And we want to do prevention. There's regulatory issues, there's HIPAA. I know there's a lot of things that make it difficult. So what can we do today around that? So one great predictor of future poor health outcomes is isolation and loneliness. So what can we do with vulnerable populations to get them more connected with family, with friends? The ability to see into someone's house, into their life, provides, what's their nutrition like? What's their hygiene like? Are they able to move around? So let me give an example here of a short video of some work we're doing. Translation.
¿Te gusta vivir en la Ciudad de México?
Aquí está muy lindo.
Here is very nice.
What do you do for fun?
¿Qué haces para divertirte?
Voy a las playas de México.
I'm going to the beaches of Mexico.
I like to swim.
Me gusta nadar.
A mí también.
Me too.
Where in the world do you wish to come?
So shipping product might be in preview. I think it's out of preview. If anybody go to Skype, you can download it today. If anybody can't get at it because it's still in preview, drop me a note. I'll get you an invitation code. Just a couple things that are nice about that. One, it's near real-time translation. So we're teaching computers to listen. It is great at breaking down cultural barriers, how you can communicate with other folks that may not speak your language. Probably not good enough for a clinical setting, where you have very specific words that mean specific things. But for patient advocates, for other people that interact with patients, certainly a great boon. People that are in a foreign country and have a health crisis are probably scared. They're feeling alienated. So how do we get that human connection so they can understand what's going on? The other thing that's interesting about, I think a lot of people miss, is that in addition to the voice side of it that we translate back and forth, there's the printed word there. So for illiterate populations, so how can you occasionally take vocal input and translate that into written text so that other people can process it? So that's teaching computers to see. We've done some work around classification. So we released this, it's a demo a month or so back, How Old Am I, or HowOld.net. Give it a photo and upload it, and then like that, it'll pick out the faces and give an estimate for ages. So it's a parlor trick. How old? It's pretty good. I like it. It constantly guesses me a year, sometimes 2 years younger than I am. So that's fun with me. I have some friends that were quite dismayed that it guessed badly the other way. So we're able to classify things, machine learning. So you can imagine what could we do with, you probably wouldn't use it for diagnosis, but looking at skin conditions, looking at a variety of scenarios, we could probably do high, medium, and low for how important is it for this to get looked at promptly by a specialist. How do we free up people's time to do high-value work? How do we get people into the healthcare system sooner while there's still an opportunity for prevention? So another example.
Hannah, what kind of dog is this?
Could you take a picture for me?
Anyone care to guess what breed of dog this is? Ridgeback? Let's see if Cortana agrees with me.
I believe this is a Rhodesian Ridgeback.
So classification. So dogs, first thing we did, we can move on from there. So that's still images. So, but the world's in motion. So how do we deal with that? So we Microsoft Research worked with hospitals, does it say where? I don't remember the hospitals. Around tracking gait and balance for patients recovering from strokes. And it turns out that tracking joints is really kind of cool for video games. It's also really good for physical therapy. So we're able to track people's progress and identify who's progressing well, who's not progressing well, based on their ability to move. So a couple things, right? Great efficiency, because we don't need to spend as much time on expensive one-on-one physical therapy with people that are progressing well. And we can spend more resources on people that we can identify that are not progressing as quickly. So great efficiency savings, great benefit to people's lives because they recover faster. Connect can also track heart rate based on skin, flushing to the skin. We can guess people's energy uses based on their weight, and are able to do a lot of interesting work around that. Other things we can do is fall analysis. So passive monitoring, we can see as people are moving around when people fall. One way we do that is we track the size of someone, and when they become wider than they are tall, we go, they fell. Tracking the joints, we can get velocity, we can know the angle they fell, based on the weight of the person, we can know their impact, and we can make a pretty good estimate of whether they're injured or not. We can identify, also, we know they didn't get up. That's also a pretty good indication of something didn't go well. But also we can track as people, we identify people. If someone's falling regularly, maybe that's a time for some intervention. So that's what an independent care facility did. Is they put connects throughout the building, and they were tracking their residents. And being able to track their gait, they combined the tracking of the gait and the fall analysis. And they were able to identify people who needed intervention 10 to 14 days before they were going to be hospitalized. So this is, once again, cost savings because they were able to intervene, not get them not in the hospital. Greater quality of life because when you fall over and you hurt yourself, it's pretty bad. And also, it allowed these people to live independently for longer because they were able to, they didn't need to move to more higher level care. Lots of money goes to frequent flyers in 911. 56% of calls came from 10 addresses. So what do we do with those 10 addresses to mitigate the number of calls that come in? So there could be code violations. It could be falls where people need some assistance in learning to fall safely. So they listened to nothing revolutionary. They just looked at the data that existed and said, how can we get better about doing this? So they built, this is fake data. So they built a tool that lets you look by address and see what was happening. And so a couple things they found. There was one gentleman that would come in at 6 o'clock several times a week into the ER. And after paying a visit, they learned that this gentleman lived on the 5th floor. And after he climbed to the 1st floor, he got a breath, take a break. 2nd floor, take a break. By the time he got to the 5th floor, he was seriously out of breath and called 911. So they went and visited him and said, hey, like to live on the 1st floor? Able to get him down to the 1st floor, hasn't been in the ER since. Another case about a woman who was having seizures. And they found out that she had no reason for not taking her meds. There weren't side effects. She knew how to take them. It was just that her family was stealing them, selling them on the street. $19 medicine saved. Didn't have another seizure. So great stories around improving the quality of life with nothing more than some basic visualization of data. I'll come back. If anyone wants to ask you about this, it's using smartphones to detect malaria. And I can talk more about later there. The last one was talked about individual impact. We've talked about how we can sort of change systems around 911 and improve the quality there. So taking it up to a global level. The White House has a challenge for lots of industries, not just tech, around how do we better prepare for climate change. What systems do we need? How can we build better technologies, better interventions to deal with climate change? So I included this next project for a couple of reasons. One, it brings together a lot of those tech trends I talked about earlier. And I've also learned that no good technology talk today is sufficient unless it includes drones. So what we do is we fly drones around and we capture mosquitoes. These are completely autonomous drones, so they're not driven by anybody. So there's a lot of machine intelligence around being able to understand where they are so they can sort of Roomba their way around the environment and make sure they cover all the area. We capture those mosquitoes. We do hugely computationally expensive genetic tracing on them, pathogen tracing, and be able to understand what is the risk around potential disease outbreaks in areas. So we're piloting this down in South Caribbean around being able to, how do we do this safely, how to make sure drones fly around, they don't bump into each other, they don't bump into buildings, and that we're actually able to process data in little enough time to get some decent results. So that's for all the good news. So I want to talk briefly about some potential risks that we need to think through. So one is security. So all this technology is great, but when we start getting into the world of Internet of Things, when we start talking about healthcare, it really starts becoming, digital starts becoming physical. Things have life and death impacts. So Stuxnet, the belief is that took out a whole lot of physical centrifuges in Iran. So virus came in, lots of physical damage. A couple of years ago, there was reports on a remote vulnerability in Wi-Fi controlled pacemakers. So it's all fun and games when you're driving up and down the street, making the garage doors go up and down. It's totally different when you're fiddling around people's medical devices. The other thing is, on that, is surveillance. Skipping all of the Snowden revelations, there's a lot of data floating around. There's a lot of machine intelligence that we're building on top of things where we can start making pretty good guesses around things. So given 5 location data points, there's a 95 or so percent chance that someone can personally identify you. As you are driving down the street, I talked a little bit earlier about the example of intention. Where do you stop at what time are you having dinner? Well, who are you having dinner with? Is it your family? Is it a high-end restaurant? Is it a low-end restaurant? We can start making decisions around your economic status. What type of food do they serve? We can probably start making healthcare decisions around that. And until we come up with a societal framework around how to handle that, and until that works out, I think we're going to be somewhat stymied around a lot of these innovations. And for the tech industry, getting that level of trust really, it's existential for us. We need to have society's trust that we are doing the right thing with their data and that we are using it for their benefit. It's their data that they're giving to us, and the trade-off is that we are going to use it in a trusted manner. Algorithms. So we've got all these algorithms running against that data. Computers are really, really good at optimizing things, making things better, more efficiently. But we start needing to bake in value judgments. How do we optimize that? Do we optimize it for outcome? Do we want healthier patients? Do we want longer life? Do we want better quality of life? Do we want cost savings? Do we want more revenue? This is a multi-sided market, and not all the actors have the same intentions. And trying to figure out how we properly model that in software is going to be difficult. If you think the death panel debate was surreal, wait till we start baking that into machine learning. Do you know what this is a photo of, by the way? Any guesses? So these are the first computers. So before we had a supercomputer in our pocket, before we had a computer on our desktop, before we had the IBM's room-sized mainframe, a computer was one of these women who did computation. So look at there's a great Wikipedia article on human computers, and so they were instrumental in the war effort around aircraft design, around artillery targeting. They kept going on into the early part of the space age, and then they were obsoleted by transistors. And machine learning is going to probably obsolete a lot of us in this room, because that judgment that we bring that makes us valuable is less important. There's legitimate articles written about the depth of research. Let's just use big data and look for correlations. And once we get a correlation, we'll get a couple people to look at that. Radiology, we really need, we can build algorithms and vision analysis around that. I guess Johnson & Johnson has Sedasis that does low-end anesthesiologist work for colonoscopies. These are all white-collar jobs that we need to think through what our society is going to be like around that. And the last thing, I know I'm out of time, is we've got to be careful with digital divide. Technology has a winner-take-all model in a lot of cases. It plays into Nicholas Taleb's extremist stand. How do we make sure that our technology is not only accessible, but targeted to and usable and designed for all of our populations? We have this belief that, we use this technology and we're going to have equivalents. But see, click, fix. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's basically the pothole fixing app. See something wrong in your neighborhood, take a photo of it, send it to the 311 system, and the city magically comes and fixes that. We thought, there's cell phone are widely distributed. A lot of stuff this would really help more run-down neighborhoods improve. Well, it turns out it's just widely divided in a lot of cases. Because neighborhoods, a lot of underserved neighborhoods don't trust the government. They don't want to be known. They don't see government as helping them. And they are less likely to identify problems in their neighborhoods than already privileged neighborhoods. So there's something that we kind of got wrong empirically, and I think we, as people working particularly in the healthcare space, as we migrated these technologies, we really need to keep that piece in mind. So I think I'm at time. I'm allowed for some questions. Blog, Microsoft Bay Area is our local blog. Microsoft SD for Silicon Valley is a Twitter handle. I'm Earl Scott, as in liberal, to disambiguate me from the other Scott in college. Should we say not so liberal? And I welcome any questions, comments, if you have time, or are we wrapping up? I can stay here and you can come up and ask me. So thank you. It's been a great conference. I've learned a lot.
Yeah, so we're just going to close up, and we will ask Scott, as he graciously offered, to stay around a little bit longer and answer some questions. I'm sure you guys will have some, but the time has cometh. The conference is now over, so thank you so much for attending our 5th annual Healthcare Technology Forum conference. We've really been, I think, very fortunate. We really want to extend our thanks to all of our speakers, our sponsors, our expo hall exhibitors, all of the volunteers that were involved in kind of pulling all of this together. It's kind of a crazy back scene there. But we really also, without the audience, we really don't have a conference. We really want to thank all of you for taking the time and for being very active and engaged and kind of just asking great questions throughout the whole event. I think we've been very, very lucky with that. We would love to stay connected with all of you going forwards into the next year. So find a local Healthcare Technology Forum chapter in your local community, in your local city, where we have chapters globally as well. So check out the website, get involved. It's just a really great organization. You really end up meeting a lot of people. Just a quick personal note, I got pulled into this role after attending one meetup. So just to kind of show you how far just doing a little can go. And we still have a great networking event lasting until 8 o'clock tonight. So we would love to have you guys come to the Waterfront Ballroom, have some drinks with us, and just mingle a little bit, because it's always sort of sad when things end. A little bit kind of one of those things. So that would be great. We'd love for you to check out the expos if you haven't had a chance. And just thank you again, and we hope to see you all next year. Thanks.